Hello, I'm Connor with Believe on COVID. I started this project because 2 years into COVID, my mom got seriously sick and is still sick uh, because of COVID. And it's been really tough, and I wanted to help her as much as possible and people who have long COVID like her as much as possible. And when I asked them, they all said that the thing they needed most was to be believed. Hello, I'm Connor with Believe Long COVID. I am here today with Charity. Charity, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, Connor. I work as a professor at a small liberal arts college where I teach music. So I teach classes for people who are going to major in music. And then I also teach classes for people who just want to learn about music at college. And I live in New York State and I'm married and I have one son and two stepsons.
Hmm. How has long COVID affected your job?
Oh, that's a good question. It's affected it in there's a few different ways it's affected it. One of the big ways is that every day that I have to work, or even ahead of time when I have to work, I can't take it for granted, and I it's not easy anymore. And I don't even mean easy like I don't have a lot to do or those kinds of things. I mean easy is that I can't do the normal things I used to be able to do when I go to work without planning it. And
Yeah.
that's things that include like I can't even go up and down the stairs anymore. And so I have to wait for the elevator and I have to have extra time for that. And I have to be careful about how much walking I do to different buildings at my job. I have to be careful about when I schedule meetings with people I work with or with my students and how many meetings. I have to be prepared that I could be having a really good week with my students and working really hard with them. And then if I get symptoms that make it so I can't go to work, then it doesn't matter what kind of groove I'm in, I have to stop and
Yeah.
teach on Zoom or those kinds of things. So it affects my work in that it feels like you have like 20-pound weights on and kind of an obstacle course instead of just, oh, I'm gonna do my normal job and I'm gonna be able to do it without having to be too careful or plan too much. Instead, it's the opposite. I can only do my job if I'm really careful and if I plan carefully.
Yeah. Like you could only do like you might plan too much and do just a little bit too much and then crash for a long time.
Exactly. And I it that's the kind of thing that happens is that I can get um when the semester starts, I can typically get maybe 4 weeks of, doing the kinds of things that I have to do to get started. And then at week 5, usually I start to pay pretty hard. I have to miss a day of classes or I have to move things around or my students need help and I can't help them as much as I would like to, and those kinds of things. So that's exactly you're never in a groove where you're just like, oh, this is great. It's always like, will I pay for this later? Do I help this person now? And then it's going to make it so I can't do things later on for myself or for the students that I teach.
Mhm. How long have you had long COVID for?
I've had long COVID pretty much since I got COVID for the first time at the end of May in 2020. So just about 4 years or so.
Wow. It's a
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah. It's a weird thing because I sometimes get this sad feeling when I think about the fact that like I don't really remember as much anymore about what life was like before long COVID. Like, when I get up every day, I just kind of it's just the me now that feels tired and has to be really careful and feel sick most days, and sometimes it makes me sad too to think that my students and my kids, like, they won't remember either as we have more and more time when I'm sick. I'm only going to be remembered. My fear is I'm only going to be remembered as someone who's sick, not somebody who wasn't sick, you know?
Yeah, I can understand that. That must be very scary to like be remembered as someone sick and not like as energetic as you were before.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like the old person doesn't, you get afraid that the old person doesn't exist anymore, you know? So that's a tough part of it is just um, when you realize that that's sort of the situation you're in, and that the way it shapes how you not just how you live, but then how you think about yourself, and then how other people think about you. And you know, after a while, like I feel really lucky. I have a lot of really supportive friends and family, but I know sometimes they don't invite me to do stuff because they think, oh, she's sick. I don't want to make her more sick. But you know how it is. You don't want to miss
Mhm.
fun things with your friends. So, so those are some of the things that are more they're sad and they're not things that I can plan my way out of. I can plan to do my work, but I can't plan when people think I'm too sick to invite to do something fun. Those are just things that are really hard.
Yeah. What have you lost due to long COVID?
Oh man, that that's some of the things you've heard me talk about already, just with work and with connecting with people. But I've lost that one of the. I guess I'll concentrate on three things. I've lost my ability to do fun physical things that I really enjoyed. I loved lifting weights and climbing mountains and doing all of those kinds of things, and I can't do those things anymore. Sports, I can't my son is almost 16. I can't like go, shoot hoops with him or those kinds of things. I can cheer him on, but that's about it. So I've lost my ability to do fun physical activities. And I've lost a big thing I've lost is because I want to and need to keep my job, that has to be almost all of the time that has to be number one when I'm plotting out where do I want to spend my energy. So I used to build things around my house. I really love like building bookshelves or fixing up things. I can only do those things for a couple weeks a year and only if I'm really, really, really careful. But I've lost most of my hobbies because either I can't do them anymore or even if I can do them, I can't afford the possibility of getting sick from doing them. And then the last thing is just those activities used to allow me to more easily like make new friends and do things with people. And I really had to change that because I lost a lot of ways to connect with folks. To be able to visit people if I have to travel far, those kinds of things. So I've lost some closeness with people because I can't be as I can't see them as much, and I can't do the things that we used to do together.
Yeah, you're not as social and you're unable to maintain hobbies that you used to before, so it's much harder for you to have enjoyable time.
Yeah, yeah, and not to just always be a little bit worried, like, is this gonna make it so I can't get my work done? Is this gonna make it so and you can just fill in the blank.
Mhm.
It's always this, like, fear, is this gonna make it so that I get sick or sicker? Is this gonna make it so that I crash? Is this gonna make it so that I can't, do all the things that I need to do? So,
Mhm.
so those are the biggest losses, I would say.
Have you dealt with people not believing in you? And if you have, what has it felt like?
Oh, that's such a good question. I am a little bit more fortunate than some people in that I've mostly dealt with people who do believe me. But there's two circumstances that have come up. One time it was a doctor who I really needed help from, and I found this very difficult because she had a really good reputation, and I have nerve pain from long COVID that makes my legs hurt really bad. And so I went to her and I told her about my symptoms. And from a long COVID standpoint, they're pretty normal symptoms. It's called small fiber neuropathy. But she heard my story and she just said, "Your story doesn't check out." And I was like, "What do you mean?" What do you mean it doesn't check out? I have this pain and I need your help. And I said, "Well, if it gets worse, should I call you?" And she's like, "No, I'm not your doctor." And it was really painful. She um it was sad, but it also really made me angry because her job is to be curious and help people, and she was not interested. And so that was very painful because I had to keep looking, and I had to hope that other doctors I talked to about this pain weren't going to treat me the same. So it wasn't just that she didn't believe me; it's that now I had to be nervous that any doctor or any person um, who could help me get rid of this really bad leg pain wouldn't believe me, and I can't do it by myself, right? So there was that one, and then there's just I have some folks that are sometimes around where I work who I it's not that they don't believe me, it's I think they forget or they don't understand. But if they see me doing something that is a little bit more than I usually do, if they see me walking around more or talking with students more, they say, "Oh, you're better." And that's when I have to say I'm not better, it's just today. "Oh, but surely you're getting better. This is better." And then I have to say that's not how long COVID works. And so for those people, it's not as bad as not being believed, but it's sort of adjacent when I have to keep saying, "No, this is chronic. No, this I still have it." "Oh, but you look so good." And I say, "No, it's still there."
It must be terrible experience, and uh, I guess those people don't understand that it's a chronic disease and it doesn't just go away.
Yeah, and I think they're people that I really know as like caring individuals. And it's a weird thing where it does hurt really bad because it feels like they don't hear you or it feels like you're invisible. And because I really know these people and I really like these people, I the first few times at least I was willing to say, "Oh, they just don't quite understand it and they want me to not be sick anymore." But what's hard is after a while you're like, this is who I am now. And my hope is that you'll still think I'm a good colleague or a good friend even when I'm sick, not because you just think I'm getting better all the time. So after a while, it started hurting more and more because it just felt like there wasn't a space for me to be both a good friend or work with them and to be sick. It felt like it felt hard for them, and that made it really, really hard for me to understand that I was going to be dealing with this for the foreseeable future.
Hmm.
Oh. Yeah.
What are your main symptoms?
Oh, yeah. So, my main symptoms are that I get a kind of delayed form of. So I always have fatigue and insomnia. So I have to really be careful to try and get to sleep. I have to take melatonin every single night. Um, I take other medication that helps me sleep. So what that means is because those help me go to sleep, I basically between the not having energy from long COVID and then working with the insomnia, I basically feel tired all the time. And that is really, you go to bed tired, you wake up tired, your whole day you're tired, 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 tired all the time. And tired in that way that you feel like you're about to get sick, not just that you missed a night's sleep. It always feels like you're perpetually coming down with the flu. And so that's a big symptom. And then I also get this, as I mentioned before, where if I am having to work for a few weeks, then it all catches up to me and I have a crash. And so about every 4 or 5 weeks, if I'm lucky, less so if I really have to push it, then I'll have a crash where I really do feel like my limbs are made out of lead and I can't do anything and I just can't do anything. I have to just stay in bed. And then I have a condition called POTS that I got from long COVID, which just means that my blood pressure drops when I stand up. My heart kind of starts racing to compensate. So the effect of that is that it makes you feel even more tired when you have to stand up and do stuff. So I have that, and then I have, as I mentioned before, the small fiber neuropathy, which is mostly in my legs now, but it can affect my hands. And it's just a form of nerve pain. It's sort of like when you hit your funny bone, a little less strong than that, but it affects my fingers sometimes and my legs, and it can keep me from being able to sleep just because it hurts. So those are my main symptoms, and then I have some asthma. I never had asthma before. I got COVID, and I have some residual asthma too. So I can get a cough if I don't have an inhaler.
It must be really tough to try and deal with those symptoms.
Yeah, it is, and in some ways, my symptoms are a little are my symptoms are manageable, is what I should say. I'm kind of lucky in that my symptoms have some medications that help them, and I did eventually find a doctor who is willing to help me with the neuropathy. But it's very, very hard to feel tired and sick every day, all the time, and to see the world just kind of going on around you. And you used to be able to do all sorts of things, and then you just can't anymore.
You said your symptoms are manageable. Does that mean that they can be worse?
Yes, so they can definitely get worse. The medications I have help with the POTS, with the blood pressure problem when I stand up, and with the neuropathy. But for either of those conditions, if I have a crash, they can blip up and get to the point where I can take extra medication to help. But they can sort of get into the red zone where there's really nothing I can do except take a few days and just rest and do nothing. And that sounds great until you have to do it. And you're staring at the same ceiling, you're playing the same dumb game on your phone. And when you have to do that when you're crashed, uh, you just get and you don't feel well, you get so sad, you get bored, you get disconnected from people, and so when they're really bad, you get all the physical pain when those symptoms go up and you can't relieve them, but then you get everything else that comes with that, which is just these sort of situations that can be really, really hard to deal with.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the fact that you have to stay in bed for a long time must be very stressful for you.
Yeah, well, and I some days, if I'm lucky, I can lie there and just be like, okay, this is a rest day. Maybe it's a Sunday. Maybe I don't have too much to do. Maybe it's the summer and I'm not teaching. But other times I just lie there and I'm both bored and sad. And I just know the minute I start to feel better, I have to do all the work I couldn't do when I was unable to work. And so it's all just waiting, waiting to get better. And then it's just like, how do I do all the stuff I couldn't do without making myself sick again? So it can be really stressful to be in that situation of how do I catch up?
Can you tell
Okay.
me a little bit about your family?
Oh, sure. So I'm married, and my wife also has long COVID, and her symptoms are a bit more pronounced than mine. And so Um, she she is here and can't work anymore. And then I have my two stepsons. One is 23 and one is 19. And then I have a son who just finished his sophomore year of high school, and he's 15 years old. And so that's the family I live with, and my immediate family, and then my the rest of my family all lives out west. And so I try and see them as much as I can. That's a bit harder to do with long COVID. So taking big trips, they live about 2,000 miles away. It's an ordeal to go see them. So, but thank you for asking.
That must be really tough to be able to have long COVID and try to take care of a wife who also has long COVID.
It is very, very hard. It's hard from a um it's challenging because the same thing happens where I'm like, okay, I have to be able to take care of her and do my job. And how do I do that without breaking down, without crashing? That's really challenging. And also, how do I be a good mom to my son and not miss all of his like activities? How do I not miss his like life, and the things he does? And so balancing those things is it's very hard. And then to watch my wife struggle is the other part of how hard that is, to see how much um, how how much it costs her with energy and with time to try and get help for her symptoms, and to watch when she's in pain and they can't help her. Very, very hard. So we manage, and we try and keep good sense of humor and do fun things together and stuff. But it is extraordinarily difficult, and I get super angry if people don't believe her. I get mad if they don't believe me, but you know how it is when it's someone you care about and they don't believe them. Then I feel like a mama bear. I'm just like so 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 that's it's hard. Like we manage, but it's a real challenge. So.
Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing
of
today
course.
and thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.